Summon the Gods by Melinda Kucsera, Book 2 of the Rogue Gods Trilogy.
Part 6. Chapter 22, Betrayed by a Book. As the female angel removed her boot from Garen's chest, she grinned, then turned to meet the person stomping toward them. A hammer appeared in her hand, and it glowed a fierce purple as she rushed to meet a woman wearing a metal helm shaped like a lion's head. Her cuirass also bore a stylized lion's head, in case her helm didn't make it clear she loved lions above all other creatures. Garen knew that grin and her excitement for the fight infected him too, helping him throw off the lingering dizziness from the invisible force that walloped him. Well, that's not something you see every day. Garen sat up as the two women crashed into each other. The female angel, name still unknown, didn't even swing her hammer. She just charged into the woman in lion armor, and the demoness bounced off her and slammed into the 5 demons behind her. What's her name? Garen pointed at the female angel, swinging her hammer in wide arcs to drive back the demons. What the hell is she humming? The tune tickled his memory. Was it an old battle hymn?
I don't know what that song is. Where did you get this?
The handsome angel grabbed the pendant from his hand. Garen cursed himself for letting it go. He should have paid more attention to what the angel was doing, but he was always a sucker for a pretty face, regardless of gender. A woman gave it to me. You'll have to ask her where she got it from, because I didn't think to ask that before she vanished.
Where's the Book of Names?
The angel stuffed the pendant into a pocket on his robe. Maybe that damned book waited for just this moment, because the mark it left on his chest quivered and peeled its inky wings off his skin. Garen slammed both his hands over the mark, but the damned thing mutated until the corner of a leather-bound book pressed into his palm. You get back in there, you stupid book. I said I'd take you back to your creator, and I will. But this pretty angel isn't him. No, the book's author was a wretched excuse for an angel, and it wasn't the dirt, the long nails, the unkempt hair, or the stained robes either. They were just the outward marks of his inner decrepitude. Shouted the Book of Names right in his skull.
What are you doing?
The pretty angel narrowed his glowing violet eyes, like he was trying to look through Garen.
Can we settle this later? There's a battle in progress, and it takes more than 2 people to hold back an army,
Natali said from somewhere behind him. Garen forgot about the Versailles, and a pang of guilt shot through his heart when he remembered they accompanied him. He glanced around for them and found Natali standing before a giant demon. One gloved hand touched the creature's chest and somehow held it back. The Versailles was probably draining its energy. Having been on the receiving end of that more than once, Garen winced in sympathy as the creature staggered backward, then collapsed so hard it shook the ground. But a moment's inattention was all the Book of Names needed. It tore out of his chest and slammed into his hands, shoving them away from his chest as the damned thing flew toward the angel. Pretty boy angel caught the book, and his eyes widened in surprise as the darn thing blackened and flowed like ink over his spotless white robes to the prim neckline and slid under it. Thankfully, the handsome angel ripped the 2 halves of his garment open, displaying a nicely muscled chest that now bore a single tattoo of a winged book. Well, that was unexpected. Garen rubbed his aching chest as he rose. He was missing a fight, and that was unlike him. The red energies released in battle swirled around the battlefield, and he pulled it all into himself, and that cleared his head finally.
Why did you steal it and then bring it back?
The Book of Names' new owner rose, and power crackled around him. Angels had auras, but not in the same way as other magic users. But Garen squinted at him, anyway. He wasn't disappointed when he just saw the usual violet glow that all angels had. Oh well, it was worth a try. Garen shut off his maid's sight, since he couldn't do much else with it besides gauge power levels. And that wasn't all that useful in a physical fight.
I could use a little help here.
Natali called from behind him. Pumped. And I could use a weapon. Anyone got one to spare? Garen scanned the ground, but either no one dropped any weapons or someone beat him to them. He shrugged and threw a punch at the demon that got past Natali, and pain plowed into his fist when he struck the pig-faced demon's face. But the pain faded as he absorbed the energy released by that blow. Garen laughed and laid into the next demon. That's right, boys. The god of war is back in business.
Arjunion.
The female angel shouted. Garen turned at the sound of that name. He could couldn't wait to see how Pretty Boy Angel would explain to that worthy that he had the Book of Names. Pretty Boy Angel turned to look for his angel friend instead of getting that confrontation over with. Damn it, now I have to follow him, so I don't miss that. It promised to be an epic conversation, the kind that could lead to a fight between angels. Guren got chills just thinking about it, and he forgot they were surrounded. A hammer slammed into his chest, sending him staggering as pain radiated through every nerve. Ouch!
You don't scare me, war god.
The lady in the lion armor twirled the war hammer like it was a baton.
But I didn't come for you.
She pointed her hammer at Pretty Boy Angel. What the hell was he doing? Now wasn't the time to take notes, but that's what the handsome angel with the Book of Names tattooed on his chest was doing. He crouched in the dust and traced a symbol with the lavender blood flowing from a cut on his wrist.
Hurry up with that spell. I'm good, but I can't hold off an army forever.
The female angel said as she tossed a demon at 5 charging demonesses. They went down like pins in that weird game a rival god created, but it never caught on. The ground shook as Guren reached for Natalie's arm and yanked her away from the fight.
What's happening?
Ask him that. Guren ran to the edge of the symbol, and the female angel backed up until the heels of her sandals touched it too.
You can't escape us. You're surrounded. It's only a matter of time before we destroy you,
said a fallen angel as the demons parted to let him pass. But he must have hit every ugly rock on the way down to hell. This creature looked like a caricature of an angel drawn by a madman. His body was thin and stretched, and his back was bowed so his long nails trailed on the ground. His mouth couldn't close properly because his teeth were too big and too numerous to fit properly, so drool dripped from his moist lips. A gold halo wrapped around his neck like a collar, and his violet eyes burned with madness. To test his powers, Magier experienced within herself.
I don't think so.
Pretty Boy Angel did something, and the mark lit up with a violet light that turned as blue as the ocean on a summer day. All around them, the ground rippled and flowed like muddy water, and the army sank into it. But the ground where Guren stood stayed solid. That was enough to send some combatants running back to the ruins on the outskirts of the city.
Stand your ground. This is a trick, nothing more.
It's not a trick. This plain used to be a lake. I invited the waters to return.
Pretty Boy Angel rose, and the wind chose that moment to whip past, blowing his black hair away from his face. That was enough to send the rest of the demons running, and they splashed their way through the deepening water. What about us? Guren tapped the handsome angel on the shoulder. I never learned how to swim. I left all the naval battles to another war god. Why hog all the battles? Am I right?
I don't know, but we can fly, so we're covered. We could fly you away from this watery mess if you give us a good reason to.
The female angel gave him a speculative look. The fallen angel with the drooling problem unhinged his jaws, and his gray tongue lolled out, but it was covered in spikes. He flicked his tongue and hurled the spikes at them.
I've got this.
The female angel moved so fast that she blurred. When she stilled, she held all the spikes in her hands, then dropped them into the muddy water.
Catch this.
The fallen angel spat, and the head-sized ball of phlegm sailed toward them.
No, thank you.
The female angel stepped aside, and the phlegm struck the glowing symbol and burned it away. The waters receded into the earth, but the army didn't turn around and run back to the interrupted battle. A human-looking male, wearing a leather skirt and not much else, also remained with the twisted fallen angel and the woman in lion armor. But it was 4 against 3 now, and those were much better odds.
Do you really want to fight me, Kazazel?
Pretty Boy Angel stepped forward. The fallen angel's name reverberated, and the hideous creature froze.
What about you, Ramiel? Or you, Leonestra?
The other 2 combatants froze too.
Go back to your master and tell him the library belongs to me, and so do all its treasures.
What did you do?
The female angel walked up to the guy wearing a leather skirt and tapped his shoulder, but he didn't move, not even his eyes.
It won't last long.
Pretty Boy Angel spun.
Why did you take the Book of Names, Guren?
The name slammed into Guren and froze him too.
And tell us about that pendant.
The female angel folded her arms and glared at him too. Natalie waved to get their attention.
Could we discuss this somewhere else, like inside the library?
The Versailles waved to that fortress-like structure and the golden shield over it.
Who are you? Why are you with him?
The female angel stalked over to the Versati and stopped a few feet away.
He promised to introduce me to someone if I helped him, so I need him until he fulfills his promise.
Natali seized his arm and tried to budge him, but his true name on that angel's lips turned Garan into a fleshy statue, capable of thought, but nothing else.
They're right. We can't stay here unless you want to keep freezing them. While that might be fun for a while, it could also get tedious fast. And their subordinates might decide to come back.
The female angel scratched her nose like it itched.
All right, which one do you want to carry?
Pretty boy angel kicked some dirt over the remains of the sigil.
The war god. Never carried one of his kind before. Might be fun.
She grabbed Garan and threw him over her shoulder like he was a sack of frozen potatoes. Worst still, he couldn't even argue with her. Pretty boy angel glanced at Natali warily, but the Versati raised their hands.
I won't drain you. We came to find the fallen angel who runs the library.
Natali lowered their hands.
You're looking at him.
The female angel laughed at their expressions, then jumped and spread her wings. As she flew toward the library's towers, the paralysis wore off. But she must be mistaken. That handsome angel wasn't Arganiel. Garan didn't grab hold of her, even though he really wanted to. Flight wasn't one of his skills, and the ground was a long way down, too far for comfort. A fall from that height would probably break something. Thankfully, she descended before worry could gnaw away at his composure. After all, he had a reputation to uphold. War gods didn't show fear, even if their legs quaked from it.
Chapter 23. A tough decision. Could they steal his energy? Arganiel tried not to glare at the Versati clamped to his side as that question repeated in his mind. He needed to concentrate on flying and figuring out just how they could pass through the shield without him taking it down or punching a hole through it. He already passed through it once with Thaniel, and that hadn't weakened it, but a second time might, so he needed another option. Unfortunately, he couldn't think of another way to get inside.
I won't drain you, so you can stop looking at me like you're waiting for me to break my promise, because I won't.
The Versati glared back at him with pink eyes that blazed with either power or emotion or both as the wind whipped their veil and robe. I'm sorry, trust doesn't come easily for me. Arganiel glanced over his shoulder at the three combatants left on the muddy ground. Neither one moved yet, but they would when the binding wore off. What would they do then? They couldn't hope to break in, not with just the three of them, unless they were a lot more powerful than they'd shown. Just to be on the safe side, he should avoid showing them any weaknesses in the shield over the library and its 4 towers.
Hey, how are we getting in? There's this shield in the way, in case you haven't noticed.
Thaniel stomped her sandaled foot on the semi-concrete gold shield to grab his attention. Follow me. Arganiel flew over the shield to the opposite side of the library so it blocked them from view. Only when he was certain no one on the other side could see them did he land and set the Versati down so he could make a temporary hole in the shield for them to enter. But should he let that thief back in? Arganiel glanced at the ex-war god. Not yet. He needed answers first, and then he could decide. Arganiel stalked over to the thief as Thaniel set him down, but she held onto his arm just in case he decided to go somewhere he shouldn't. Why did you steal the Book of Names? That wasn't the question Arganiel really wanted answered, but he needed to know that too, and it seemed like the best place to start. Why did the ex-war god bring it back? That was the part that made no sense. But he'd find out before anyone went anywhere.
A woman who claimed to be the sleeping angel asked me to fetch it, and I did.
The ex-war god scratched his chin, and his name jumped into Arganiel's mind. Garan. That wasn't the answer Arganiel expected. Why did she want it?
I don't know. She wanted me to bring it to her people, and in exchange for doing that, I get to lead them. Since I'm currently without an army, you can understand why that appealed to me, being that I'm an ex-god of war and all that.
Garan glanced around like he hoped an army would show up and ask him to lead it, as if that would happen. When did you come back to the library? Arganiel glanced around too, but not for an army. A woman matching the rumors of the sleeping angel appeared to him several times now, but not once did she mention the Book of Names or that she put Garan up to stealing it, and that was telling. Her people aren't here. Or were they? Arganiel glanced at the golden shield over the library. How well did he really know the demons who worked for him? him. And where did the Versati figure in all this? They weren't tagging along for fun.
Well now, that's where things get interesting.
Garen paused like he was searching for a good explanation or crafting one. He didn't seem like a man with a strong relationship with the truth. The Versati elbowed him and then stepped forward.
I can explain that part. Genius over here ran toward the gateway, completely forgetting his promise to take me to the sleeping angel.
The Versati jerked her thumb at Garen in case anyone was confused about who she meant.
But I couldn't have that, so I stopped him. By the time he regained his senses, there was an army between us and the gateway, and that's when his plan changed.
Garen laughed like the Versati told a funny joke, but his laughter sounded forced.
What they're trying to say is that I realize the author of the Book of Names would be even more valuable than the book itself.
So you came back to return the book to me? Arginil found that hard to believe. Thieves didn't usually return what they stole.
Look, I don't know who you are, but you're not the fallen angel I stole the book from.
Garen shook his index finger at him. Yes, I am. I don't care if you believe me. Your beliefs don't change the facts. Arginil turned away, but he still couldn't understand why they came back here. Garen spluttered until he finally put his confusion into words.
How is that even possible? You look so different from when I saw you last.
I can answer that.
Thaniel raised her hand like she was in school.
He was under a glamour that made him look like a ruined version of himself, but it was just an illusion, so I removed it.
That was another thing since he left the gateway that made no sense. Angels didn't like lies or deception unless they were fallen. But I'm not fallen, so why didn't I notice there was a glamour on me? No matter how Arginil looked at the situation, he couldn't figure that out. I didn't even feel it, and I should have.
And who are you?
Garen pointed at Thaniel.
I'm the angel Thaniel, and I came down here chasing a rumor about a dear friend I hadn't seen in a long time.
She clamped a hand on Arginil's shoulder and squeezed.
So, who are you?
I was a war god before I arrived here, and one of my names was Garen, and it kind of stuck, so you might as well call me that.
Garen shrugged like he didn't really care what they called him.
And you can call me Natalie.
The Versati rested a gloved hand on their chest and bowed.
So he's really the fallen angel known as Arginil?
Garen pointed at him, even though they'd already established that fact.
He's the angel known as Arginil, yes, but look at his halo. It's not a collar around his neck. It floats at the right height above his head for a proper angel, so he's not fallen.
Thaniel waved to illustrate her point.
Then why is he in hell?
Garen pointed at him again, and all the pointing was getting annoying. So was the fact that everyone was talking about him like he wasn't standing there listening to every word they said. But Garen asked the one question that Arginil had been avoiding. He didn't want to think back to the time before the fall right now. I still don't understand why you came back. What were you hoping to do? Take me to the rebels too?
That was the plan. So what do you say? Are you ready to come with us to the rebels?
Garen looked at him like he expected a resounding yes. No, that's a terrible plan. I can't leave the library unprotected. They were mad if they thought he would even consider that. Arginil turned his back on them again.
What he's not telling you is that we don't even know where the rebels are, so we can't link up with them even if we wanted to.
Natalie said, and the Versati sounded as frustrated as Arginil felt.
It sounds like we're at an impasse, and that sucks, because I'm curious about these rebels and this army you think you're going to lead.
Thaniel planted her fists on her hips as Arginil turned in time to catch Garen's reaction to that bold statement.
I don't think I'm going to lead them. I know it. I can feel their acceptance right here.
Garen pounded a fist on his chest.
Right, because a bunch of people who have never met you will just bow down and accept you as their leader with open arms.
Danielle extended both arms, then dropped them to her sides and laughed.
Yeah, that's not likely to happen. But I'd like to see you try to convince them. That might be entertaining.
You don't think I can win them over?
Garen squared up to her.
I'd like to see you try.
Daniel placed one hand on his chest and pushed him backward without using a tenth of her strength. This is getting us nowhere. I can't leave the library, and I don't know if I want to let you inside it. Arginil covered his face with both hands. This wasn't how he thought the fight would end.
Well, if you're sending us on our way, then at least give me back my pendant. The sleeping angel gave it to me, and I need it to find the rebels. I've got an army to lead.
Garen extended his hand for it. How do I know you didn't steal this too? Arginil removed the pendant from his pocket, and it glowed with violet light just like an angel's eyes.
I didn't steal that. It was a gift. But you steal just one thing, and then you're branded a thief for the rest of your existence.
Garen threw his hands in the air in defeat as the violet glow intensified. No No one else seemed to notice, but Arginil couldn't look away from the pendant dangling from his hand.
What about the gateway?
Asked the same woman who had spoken to him when he tried to move the gateway. Are you the one they call the sleeping angel?
But if I am...
She appeared behind Garen and Natalie, but neither one glanced behind them. Didn't they hear her? Then again, Thaniel didn't react either. She went on teasing Garen just to get a rise out of him.
You wanted to take it down. Do you still want that?
The sleeping angel looked the same as before in her white robe. Her black hair hung loose as she fixed her glowing violet eyes on him. Is the gateway still there? Arginil asked to buy time. In truth, he'd stopped thinking about it when the army showed up. Gateways don't usually stick around for long since it takes a tremendous amount of power to sustain them.
You know that it's still there? Don't trifle with me. You feel its wrongness just like I do. It's a wound on this world and it must be closed.
The sleeping angel walked through Natalie and the Versati froze. How is that possible? Not even an angel mage could keep a gateway open this long. Hearing it was still there disturbed Arginil. Something must be powering the gateway still. What had enough power to do that for so long?
You see the problem now as clearly as I do. The adversary's cronies have done something to keep it open long past when it should have collapsed. Don't you want to know how they accomplished that?
The sleeping angel strode toward him until she was barely an inch away. You can't seduce me, so don't bother trying. I'm not interested. Arginil turned his back on her and rested a hand on the shield he created with what he thought were the last dregs of his power. Thanks to Thaniel, that wasn't the end of him.
I know, you love someone else. I hope that love is requited.
It was, but that was a long time ago on another world, and pain stabbed his chest just thinking about that as tears pricked his eyes. Angels aren't supposed to love anyone but their creator.
We both know that's not true.
The sleeping angel must have retreated because her voice didn't come from right behind him anymore. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Just tell me what you want, then go away and leave me alone. Arginil ran his hand down the smooth curve of the shield.
That's not really what you want, but all right, I'll go. I know when I'm not wanted.
Wait. Arginil turned, but she was gone. He wasn't sure if she was ever really there. You didn't tell me what you want. She appeared again behind Thaniel this time.
Yes, I did, but I'll tell you again since you didn't hear me the first time. I want you to go to the gateway and look at it as only you can. Through your gift, I think you could see why the gateway still stands. What powers it? I must know.
She pounded a fist into her palm. If I do that, then who will protect the library? Arginil glared at the pendant dangling from his clenched fist like it held all the answers to his questions. The shield would hold for a while, but he still needed to be here to refresh it. Besides, he'd confronted the gateway once, and the memory of that didn't make him want to try again. Arginil shuddered at the thought of going anywhere near that thing. But she was right. It was a blight on this place. I don't know how to dismantle a gateway. Do you know?
No, I don't. Gateways are beyond my ability to create.
Then we're at an impasse. Arginil dropped the pendant, and it landed in the dust with a dull thud. Garen didn't react to that either, so he must still be locked in whatever spell the sleeping angel wove so they could talk without anyone overhearing them.
Are we? If you can find someone's true name by looking at them, then can't you do the same with the gateway? Can't you see the truth of it and discover how to destroy it?
The sleeping angel cocked her head to one side and studied him. That was an interesting question, but he'd rather focus his gift on her instead. Who was she really? She crossed her arms over her chest protectively.
Don't look at me like that. You don't want to see the truth. I don't even want to see it, and I know it. Trust me, whatever you saw in me would destroy your mind. After all, it already destroyed mine.
She vanished, but the idea once planted wouldn't go away. Could he look at the gateway and see its truth? That question demanded an answer. Arginil scrubbed his hands over his face. What am I thinking? I can't leave the library. But he wanted to. I owe it to myself to see what the author of my misery is doing, and if there's a way to stop him, I must do it, even if that puts my beloved library at risk.
Are you okay? I dragged you back from the edge of fading not that long ago.
Thaniel wrapped an arm around his shoulders. She was a good friend. There's something I need to do. Arginil lowered his hands from his face.
Chapter 24, Divided but Not Conquered. Natalie almost cheered when Thaniel said what they'd thought since Garen brought up the rebels. She was right, and Natalie smiled behind their veil as Garen searched for words to defend his belief that the rebels would accept him as their leader without question. The ex-god had an oversized ego. Thaniel was definitely hiding something, and all her bluster, while amusing, couldn't hide the furtive glances she gave the sky. At least the sky no longer flipped back and forth between burning burning day and darkest night, it had settled on halfway between the two and left them in an orangey twilight. Was Thaniel waiting for someone? If she was, then it wasn't someone Arginil knew, because he never once glanced at the sky after they landed. He stuck to his interrogation and pushed Garin until the ex-god had to admit the truth. I hope that continues for a long while. It was nice to see that ex-god squirm.
How do I know you didn't steal this too?
Arginil removed the pendant from his pocket, and it glowed the same color as his eyes. Unlike other fallen angels, he had this earthy realness that other members of his race lacked. There was nothing ethereal about him.
Natalie,
A woman whispered, but she wasn't Thaniel. That angel still argued with Garin about this supposed rebel army the ex-war gods swore he could claim. They must be really hard up if they accept him as their savior. Natalie didn't say that aloud, though. Thaniel didn't need any help to roast the ex-god, and her violet eyes danced with amusement every time he protested. At least someone else enjoys his discomfort as much as I do. If Thaniel didn't whisper their name, then who had? Thaniel was the only woman in their group.
Natalie,
Said that woman again. Natalie glanced around until a woman in white robes like Arginil and Thaniel appeared behind them. She had long black hair that didn't stir in the breeze because she wasn't really there. This was some trick of the light.
it's not a trick.
The angel fixed her glowing violet eyes on Natalie. Neither Arginil nor Thaniel reacted to her presence, and that was strange since they were both angels. Are you the sleeping angel? Natalie hoped she was.
Some call me that. Come, walk with me.
The sleeping angel turned and strode away. I can't believe she appeared to me. How did she know I longed to meet her? How could they ask that? Natalie hurried after her. Perhaps the sleeping angel had a special mission for them. It would be a relief to ditch the selfish ex-god. It was exhausting keeping him on track to fulfill a promise he never had any intention of keeping. Worse still, he doesn't think I know he doesn't plan to keep it.
You must find me and wake me up. I was wrong to ask Garen to do that, I see that now, but I trust you to do it.
The sleeping angel stopped and faced Natalie before they went far. The library and its shield still blocked them from view from anyone on the other side, if anyone still remained over there. What about Garen? He promised to take me to you. Of course, he didn't know where she was, but neither did Natalie. Maybe the sleeping angel could give them a clue.
We both know that won't happen. He's too capricious. His mind changes with his changing whims.
The sleeping angel rested her hands on her hips. What about the Book of Names and its author? Both are right here. But Natalie didn't want to make Arginil do anything. His straightforward manner was refreshing after dealing with Garen for so long. I respect him too, and he was pleasing to look at, but that was a side effect of his angelic nature.
If you can bring them both, it would be a boon to our side, but if you can't, then you can't.
The sleeping angel shrugged, and her gaze unfocused, like she was looking at events happening far away.
The enemy is moving quicker than I realized, and we need to move quicker still.
What do you need me to do? Natalie clenched their fists. They wouldn't let the sleeping angel down.
Find me and wake me up. My soul is divided. I can't fix anything until I'm whole, but you must be careful. The other half of me is dark and twisted. She fell under the adversary's sway a long time ago.
The sleeping angel faded as she paced.
Even now, she thinks she's undermining him, but she's playing into his hands instead. I've tried to warn her, but she won't listen to me because I'm the part of herself she locked away so long ago that we're practically two different people now.
I understand. My nature is divided too, but they were made that way because of a curse on their kind. No need to go into that right now, though. The sleeping angel probably knew all about that. Natalie fought the urge to reach out to her.
And you know what it's like to yearn, to be whole.
The sleeping angel smiled, but it was a sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yes, I do. Natalie caught the glowing violet eyes of Arginil. He knew what that felt like, too. If only I could convince him to come with me. He would be a constant ally, never wavering. Unlike a certain ex-war god, Natalie glared at Garen, and he didn't react, even though they were glaring at his back hard enough to burn holes in it if they had such power. For his sake, he should be glad they didn't.
Wake me up, and we can both be whole again.
The sleeping angel said as she faded away as if she were nothing more than a dream. Natalie strode back to the group before they noticed their absence. Not that Garen would. His ego didn't leave any space to care for others, but the angels might notice. Natalie glanced at Arginil. How can I convince him to help me? There were the obvious ways, like seduction. I don't want to seduce him, and I don't want to drain him or force him. I want him to agree of his own free will, but that would require them to come up with the right argument to change his mind about leaving the library, and Natalie couldn't think of a single reason that would sway him. There must be something.
Are you okay? I did drag you back from the edge of fading not that long ago.
Thaniel walked over and put an arm around Arjaniel's shoulders as he stirred like someone waking from a trance. Did the sleeping angel speak to him too?
There's something I need to do.
Arjaniel lowered his hands from his face and he looked right at Natalie, stopping them in their tracks.
You can either come with me or you can go with them.
Arjaniel waved to Garen, but he was talking to Thaniel. What about the library? I thought you couldn't leave it unattended. Natalie had to ask. Did the sleeping angel change his mind about that? She must have, because I didn't even get the chance to say anything to him. That meant she wanted him to go do whatever he had in mind. If she wants that, then I must help him.
Perhaps I can leave it alone for a little while.
Arjaniel glanced over his shoulder at it.
Where are you going?
Daniel turned him to face her.
To dismantle a gateway. Do you want to help?
Arjaniel squeezed her hand on his shoulder, but that didn't reassure her, judging by the way she gripped him.
Dismantling things really isn't my thing since there's no army involved, but I could get behind some magical destruction.
Garen said as he rubbed his hands together, and that was a surprise. He didn't volunteer for anything in their short acquaintanceship. How will you reach the gateway? There are still thousands of demons in between here and there, and you're not exactly inconspicuous looking like you do. Natalie folded their arms. Just to do something. Would the angels let them cast an illusion over them? Can I cast one on an angel?
What are you asking?
Arjaniel slipped out of his fellow angel's grasp and approached them. I'm suggesting that I put an illusion on us all so we blend in, unless you can do it. But Natalie didn't think he could since his gift revealed the truth and illusions obscured it. He didn't object. Instead, a thoughtful look crossed Arjaniel's face, like he was actually considering their proposal.
And then what?
Natalie shrugged. We head toward the gateway like a group of demons on a mission, since that's what anyone will see when they look at us, and then make a plan when we reach it. You saw how good my illusions are earlier, but Natalie didn't know what gave them away. Arjaniel had come straight to them through an army, no less. Had he seen through the illusion? Perhaps it was his gift, or that damned pendant lying on the ground showed him the truth. Natalie stepped on the pendant while everyone looked at them. Garen thought it might lead him to the rebels. Supposedly the sleeping angel gave it to him, and she wouldn't have done that if he didn't need it for something. What if the pendant didn't lead to the rebels but directly to her? I will find her and wake her up. Nothing will stop me. But this gateway business was a necessary delay since it could earn Arjaniel's trust, and that was a worthy cause. Natalie waited as the two angels mulled over their request, but they didn't wait long.
All right, let's try your way.
Arjaniel tensed, though as if he expected it would hurt to layer an illusion over him. Natalie approached him slowly, eager to touch his aura, especially now that they had permission. You won't feel anything, and you won't see the illusion either. Only others will see it. His shoulders fell upon hearing that, but he held their gaze despite his obvious discomfort with the idea.
And it's just temporary?
Natalie summoned their power from within. Yes, but the illusion will just bend people's perception of you so they see what they expect to see, and that would be a fallen angel, corrupted and evil, not an angel unsullied by hell. Natalie gently grasped the edges of his aura and wove an illusion of the creature Garen described from his first meeting with Arjaniel. He would be their finest work. It had to stand up to scrutiny, so they took their time sculpting the image with feather-light touches. Thaniel would be next, and Garen would go last since he already went through this, and he could do with a little less energy, and give them a refill before they set off for the city.
Chapter 25, Twisted Time. Ivarian tried not to stare at the demons frozen on the trail, but he couldn't look away from them either. They were demons, after all, and they didn't come to shop at the markets under Mount Eridron, not armed with hammers and axes while partially armored, and were running straight toward them. I must be mad. Or Rosalie was, since it was her idea. She ran even with him too, despite the difference in height or the fact that he had longer legs. Her fraying braid kept most of her hair out of her determined face, and the very air itself seemed to curve around them like a shield. But it's not a shield. Nothing's protecting us if those demons unfreeze and attack us. Rosalie ran as if she didn't have a care in the world, and a smile played on her lips. Was she actually enjoying this? Ivarian slid on the gravel covering the trail when he slowed to round a sharp bend, but Rosalie just kept running like the gravel didn't roll out from under her boots. Maybe she ran on this stuff all the time. What do I really know about her? Not much, if he was being honest with himself. He could list the few facts he learned about her on one hand, and none explain just how or why that raiding party of demons froze in their tracks. I didn't stop them. I don't have that kind of power. Nor had Rosalie shown such power before either. No one can stop time. Not his aunt, his uncle, or even his mother. Time couldn't stop. It always moved forward, and it was moving for them, but not for the demons. How is that even possible? It wasn't, but it was happening and nothing about it made sense. Could Ran wish for time to stop? I don't know him well enough to know. I spent so much time chasing after clues about my uncle and his doings when I should have paid attention to my new friends. Well, they were back at Mount Eridron again, so he could rectify that problem. Ivarian slipped, but Rosalie yanked hard on his hand, righting him.
Are you okay?
She glanced at him for a moment, then back at the trail. What if the demons move? What will we do then? Ivarian nodded in answer to her question instead of asking. I promised to trust her in this strange magic, and damn him, he would do that, even if it got him killed. As the distance between them and the demons in the front rank shrank, Ivarian scanned them for any hint of movement. They must be faking it. Time can't stop. If the demons were faking it, they were doing an excellent job of balancing on one foot. If they attack us, we'll have to fight, obviously, but the odds of them surviving such an encounter were slim. There were 30 demons, maybe more, frozen into statue-like stillness on the trail below them, and they were getting closer with every step. His palm sweated, but Ivarian held tightly to Rosalie's hand. Gravel crunched under their feet, but that and the breath sawing out of him were the only sounds. Pebbles, kicked free by their hasty passage, ricocheted down the trail so fast they blurred until they reached the demons. Then the pebbles froze too, as if whatever stopped the demons paused them too. The demons were 100 paces away. Time warped around them just like in that abandoned city his uncle took him to before everything went wrong. But Ivarian couldn't explain why. It wasn't his magic warping it, and thus far, Rosalie had no magic that could affect time at all. But somehow, time sped up around them and slowed down for the demons. Ivarian couldn't tell by exactly how much, but any amount was bad. Did I break time when I took Rosalie to the past with me? Aunt Faye's warning repeated in his mind.
Promise you won't mess with the future. It's really fragile right now. One little thing could set off an apocalypse, and I really like to avoid that.
Worry consumed Ivarian for her. I hope you're okay, Aunt Faye. Maybe he could ask Ran to send a wish her way. The world needed someone to stop the apocalypse from happening. Was that what was happening now? Ivarian slowed as time twisted around them in barely visible ribbons. A clear bubble encased the demon raiding party, and Rosalie swerved to go around it. The demons weren't frozen. They moved in excruciatingly slow motion, and the air around them thickened until it was as hard as a solid wall. Ivarian brushed its outer edge with his hand. There was no way the demons could strike them now.
Come on.
She tugged his hand hard.
The doors are right there.
Rosalie pointed at the giant glowing doors thrown open to receive them. The mouth of a dark tunnel stood between the open doors, and it led under the mountain to the city where Rand and his uncle lived. She pulled him through the entrance after her. Ivarian glanced back, but the demons remained frozen, just steps from the same threshold they'd just crossed, surrounded by a mirrored ball that reflected their stillness. Our trip to the past must have affected the timeline in ways I didn't know were possible. We can't travel back in time anymore. We could destroy the timeline, and then no one will have a future. Every fiber of his being rejected that. No, I won't let that happen, Ivarian vowed in his heart. We have to accept that this is our future now and make the best of it. Rosalie wouldn't want to hear that. I'll help her come to terms with it. I won't cause the apocalypse my aunt is trying to stop. Ivarian clenched his hands into fists and blinked away the glow that edged his vision in white light.
It's this way. I remember Rand taking that turn.
Rosalie turned the bend in question and he followed her into the darkness. 2 hours later.
Let us in.
Rosalie pounded on a metal door that rose so high its top was lost in the deep shadows above, but the door had to stop somewhere since it was under a mountain and there was only so much space. Ivarian stopped trying to see it, since looking up for that long made his neck hurt.
Who's out there?
Ran asked through the metal door. At least it sounded like that was what he said, but it might not be him since the voice was muffled.
It's us, Rand. Please let us in.
Rosalie knocked again. Didn't that hurt her knuckles?
Who's this us you speak of? I'm not in a trusting mood, so if you can't clarify that, then I can't let you in.
That was definitely something Ram would say, so he must be talking through the door. Rosalie rolled her eyes and shook her head.
It's Rosalie and Iberian, and we're alone out here for now. But that situation won't last forever.
Not judging by the echoes of footsteps headed this way, but Rosalie didn't mention that, and Ivarian didn't either. Rand was bright enough to interpret that correctly.
Can you prove that?
Will you stop being a joker and let us in?
Rosalie shouted at the door. Rand didn't answer in words. 1 second they stood outside, wondering if the footsteps would resolve into the demon raiding party, and the next second, shelves of books surrounded them. Rand stood in front of them with his arms crossed and nodded.
You were telling the truth.
I told you they were back.
Mirren shook his head at his nephew.
One can't be too careful. Welcome to the library. It's the last bastion of humanity.
Rand spread his arms to indicate the spacious atrium.
We don't know that.
Mirren elbowed his nephew in the ribs, making him chuckle.
You shouldn't say that where somebody could overhear it. It's a depressing thing to say, and we're trying to keep people's spirits up, remember?
Please tell me you have some water for washing and a clean dress for me. I've been wearing this for God knows how long, and I desperately need to get clean.
Rosalie pinched the bodice of her dress and pulled it away from her body while fanning away the smell of sweat.
Funnily enough, when the Litharians made this place, they put in a bathing room. It's all the way in the back, but you can use it right now if no one else is.
Rand waved at the shelves of books behind him.
Oh, thank God.
Rosalie jogged toward the nearest aisle between bookshelves and vanished into the library without a backward glance.
She must really need a bath.
Rand shook his head, then picked up a chair and walked it over to the pile of furniture stacked in front of the doors of the library as someone pounded on it. He dusted off his hands as he strode back over to them.
Well, I guess you didn't fix the timeline or whatever it is you went to do because we're still dealing with demons.
Rand fixed him with a knowing look. Evarian had forgotten how blunt Rand could be. No, we didn't fix anything, but he couldn't bring himself to tell him they couldn't try again. It was just too dangerous. So that was the last attempt. I should talk to Rosalie about it before letting Rand and his uncle know. Do you have any food?
Didn't they feed you in the past?
Rand glanced at the doors and they stopped shaking. No knock came again either. Did he wish the knocker away? Probably. Yes, they fed me, but that was a while ago, and I just ran for my life, then spent hours searching for you. Evarian folded his arms over his belly as it grumbled, adding its request to his.
Yes, we have food. I'll show you where it is since my nephew forgot how to be a good host. Follow me.
Mirren shook his head at his nephew's behavior, but he did that a lot. Rand frequently forgot his manners.
I've gotten really good at wishing for food.
Rand said from behind him. That's great. Evarian followed Mirren through a narrow aisle between shelves stuffed with books. At least if I'm eating, then I can avoid answering any more questions. Going to the past left him with more questions than answers anyway, since he spent most of the time unconscious or recovering. Evarian staggered as the brave front he kept up the entire way here dissolved, leaving him spent and weary.
You look like you could use some rest too. Come on, I'll lead you to somewhere you can lie down, and I'll bring you some food.
Rand caught his arm and pulled it over his shoulder. Evarian forgot how solicitous Rand could be. He was a generous host who deserved so much better than to spend his remaining days locked up in a library while demons had the run of his city. How long could they hold out here? Evarian didn't ask as Rand helped him cross a spacious area surrounded by more narrow aisles and bookshelves. Scared people slept or sat on the padded chairs there. I don't want to know when the end will come. But he wasn't foolish enough to think that Rand could hold off both starvation and the demons forever. No wish could do that.
You've been listening to Part 6 of Summon the Gods, Book 2 of the Rogue Gods Trilogy by Melinda Kucsera. Subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when the sequel publishes. The Rogue Gods Trilogy is available as an ebook and paperback, and now a full-cast audiobook. Click the link in the description to order your copy. If you love the Rogue Gods Trilogy, then you'll love Melinda's other epic fantasy adventure books too. They're just as full of magic and mayhem and characters who will do anything to achieve their goals. Check them out at the link in the description, and while you're there, sign up for her newsletter so her characters can talk directly to you. Thank you for listening.